Alright, grade 11s, what we're going to do here is we're going to look at the quadratic formula. Now sometimes factoring can be difficult. Is that not a true statement, or what? So we want to develop a formula to find the roots of a quadratic equation without having to factor. In fact, some quadratics that can't be factored, we can use a quadratic formula to find the real number solutions. But you can't factor them. So that's the kind of cool thing here. So we can use this quadratic formula to help us answer questions that factoring can't even help us do. Now it'll also help us deal with questions that maybe we don't know how to factor as well. So here's the basic thing. For a quadratic formula or equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is the number in front of the x squared, b is the number in front of the x, and c is the number that's all by its lonesome. This is a quadratic formula right here. Now the thing you have to understand is that to use the quadratic formula properly, everything has to be on one side of the equation. If it's not, you have to move it. So, the quadratic formula, and if I was to get another math tattoo, I might just get the quadratic formula on me because this thing is so helpful. Quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This is magic. This is going to help you find the roots to any quadratic equation. So, how do we use it? Well, let's do an example. We've got 2x squared minus 6x plus 3 equals 0. So first things first. What's a, what's b, and what's c? A is 2. B is negative 6. C is 3. Now the quadratic formula again is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Alright? That's the quadratic formula. Now, all we have to do is plug in our values for a, b, and c. So, what's b? b is negative 6. So what we have to do is we have to write negative b. Now negative and then negative 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So that's negative 6 squared minus 4a, which is 2, times c, which is 3. All over 2 times a, which is 2. So negative negative 6 makes 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus, now what do we have here? 4 times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24. So that's 24 all over 4. So we get 6 plus or minus the root of 12 over 4. Now, what do we get for answers? Well, what this means is we have 6 plus the root of 12 over 4 and 6 minus the root of 12 over 4. So, let's figure out what the first is. Now, you can use your graphing calculator to do this if you wish. You could do this all in one line. But basically what we have here is 6 plus the root of 12. Divide that by 4, and I get, to 2 decimal places, 2.37 for the first root. And for the second root, I get 6 minus the root of 12. Divided by 4 equals 0.63. So these are the two roots to my equation. Okay? Now that I use the quadratic formula, I can find those roots very quickly, and I don't have to worry about factoring at all. Okay? Pretty cool stuff here. Now, let's do the next example. The next example is 12x squared minus 8x equals 3. So the first things first, what we have to do is we have to rearrange it. We have to rearrange it so everything's on one side. So 12x squared minus 8x minus 3 equals 0. Now, what's A? A is 12. B is negative 8. C is negative 3. So now, using the quadratic formula, we know that x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So, negative b is negative negative 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 12, times c, which is negative 3, all over 2 times 12. So now, that gives us 8 plus or minus the root of 64 plus, 2 negatives make a plus, 48 times 3, which should be 144. Yep. All over 24. X equals 8 plus or minus the root of 208 over 24. X equals. Now it's going to be 8 plus the root of 208 all over 24, or 8 minus the root of 208 all over 24. So now let's figure out what the answer is. So we get 8 plus the root of 208 divided by 24, which is going to give us 0.93 if we round that to 2 decimal places, or we get negative 0.27. Those are our two roots to the quadratic equation. And again, we don't have to worry about factoring. All we have to do is apply the quadratic formula and we'll find out the roots very quickly. Okay? Last example. A cannon is shot in the air. An equation that models the height of the cannonball, ht in meters, t seconds after being fired from the top of a hill, is given by h of t equals negative 4.9 t squared plus 25t plus 18. At what time does a cannonball reach a height of 10 meters? So in other words, we want to know when the height, which is 10, is equal to the equation for the flight of the cannonball. So it's negative 4.9 t squared plus 25t plus 18. Now if I bring that 10 over to the other side, I get negative 4.9 t squared plus 25t plus 18 minus 10. So that's going to be negative 4.9 t squared plus 25t plus 8. That's our quadratic equation. And our A value is negative 4.9. Our B value is 25. Our C value is 8. So now what we got to do is we're going to solve for t, not x. So we need to put t equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So, now we just plug and play. So what's b? Well, b is 25. So that's negative 25 plus or minus square root of 25 squared minus 4. What's a? That's negative 4.9 times c, which is 8, all over 2 times a, which is negative 4.9. So t equals negative 25 plus or minus root of 25 squared is 625. Minus minus makes a plus. Now what's this going to be? Well, it's going to be 4 times 4.9 times 8. So in other words, 32 times 4.9 is 156.8 all over negative 9.8. So we get negative 25 plus or minus the square root of 781.8 all over negative 9.8. So the time at which the cannonball reaches a height of 10 meters is going to be at negative 25 plus the square root of 781.8 all over negative 9.8, or negative 25 minus the square root of 781.8 all over negative 9.8. So now we just plug it into the calculator. So negative 25 plus root of 781.8 divided by negative 9.8 equals, so our first answer that we're going to get is negative 0.30 seconds. The other answer we're going to get is 5.40 seconds. So what does this mean? Well, what it means is that we get a negative answer here because the cannon is already at a height greater than 10. So it can't reach a height of 10 meters on the way up because it's already higher than that. Okay? Now, what it does mean is that the only height that we really care, the only time that we really care about here is just 5.40 seconds. So therefore, the cannonball reaches a height of 10 meters at 5.40 seconds. Okay? And there we go.